This is Mike Phelan with Syxx, and we're here today with Lisa Marie Kart, who is an actress, a journalist, and a host, and a gamer, and a YouTube content creator, and a lot of things. A lot of things that I'm not. So you've got a lot more experience in the entertainment industry than I do at this point. So how are you doing tonight, Miss Lisa?
I'm doing very well. After this, I'm going to be going to a Halloween party that Lynn invited me to. Lynn's single.
Which Halloween party is that?
um, I'm actually not sure. I never met him, but it's at a director's house, and
Oh,
it's supposedly like it's all it. The guy did a movie or something, and he made his whole entire house like I believe she said from Nightmare on Elm Street, or like very Freddy Krueger-esque, and she's like, you'd really, really like it. You should totally come to the party. So it's a little bit of a drive. So hoping it's not going to be a bust.
well, at least it's not like anything else that's going on around town, which surprisingly this year there's not a lot.
There's not a lot, and I've been invited to a lot, and it's not like it didn't pique my interest, but I've done all of that, the costume contest, the shows, the everything, and so this one is a little bit different, so I'm kind of looking forward to it after the interview.
How did you get started in the in acting or the entertainment industry as a whole?
Um, okay, so I started when I was a kid. I did little plays, like church plays. I mean, I'm not a religious person, but when I was a kid,
Yeah, you have to. Your parents got
Eh,
to make you do
yeah,
it.
yeah, and I liked doing that. And then I did a few things here and there in school, like Taming the Shrew and Rapunzel, things like that. And I took some phony acting classes. I didn't like it, and I knew it was, so I stopped going. And then I got really caught up in the music industry for a long time in my 20s, so I did that. I still do some of it, but not as much as I used to. And I decided I wanted to get back into acting, and coincidentally, one of my friends, Sushi Savette, she said there's a movie and they need some actresses here in Melbourne, Florida. So that kind of kickstarted a little bit, and then I got involved in more B-horror stuff. There's a lot of local filmmakers here who do that. So, and I actually did one that was banned in other countries, called The Hospital 2. It was a sequel, and I flew all the way up to Alabama for that. And I decided to take some real acting classes at the Performance Studio Workshop, and I wanted to kind of go into bigger stuff. I wanted to hone my acting skills. I wanted to be basically a professional working actress to where I could make this like a real profession. Not wasn't looking for stardom, but was looking to get better agents, you know, learn more from a professional so I could be more of a professional, basically, in other words. And I was looking for someone really tough to toughen my skin up and to help me learn more about the industry. And I found that at the Performance Studio Workshop with Kathy Lachlan. So, and I found a lot of really great people there, and it's definitely helped me.
When you say toughen your skin up, do you mean being able to take criticism better, or what do you mean by that?
Yes, definitely. When I was there, I probably shouldn't say this, but I cried for a few weeks every night going home, and that's how sensitive I can be sometimes.
Hmm.
But I don't like. It's hard for anyone to hear. She doesn't say this was absolutely awful. No, she'll critique you in a very good way to where you'll do your scene better the next time, and then better the next time, and then better the next time.
Hmm.
So instead of taking it to heart, you're seeing what you can do better. And I don't know how to explain her. I always say she's a character. You kind of have to meet her to understand who she is.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I kind of love her. I like the way she is, and she's helped me turn me into a way better actress. Things that I didn't even realize I was doing. She's telling me, and I completely stopped doing them to make myself into a better actress.
Hmm.
So
What were some of those things that you were doing that you had to break?
Mugging, facial mugging. I do love facial expressions, and I'm a really weird person, and I mug a lot, and you don't need to do that all the time.
Yeah,
And
I've got that problem too. That's just because I'm so used to using my face because I don't like talking a whole lot, and so people like notice like when I like when I raise my eyebrow or I just go.
yeah,
I do
I
that a
call
lot
them
because I don't want to say what. I
yeah,
just go.
I call them mannerisms, and that's pretty much, in my opinion, what they are. They're mugging, but it's just facial mannerisms that psychologically you do all the time without even noticing it. And she points it out to where you will stop doing it before you even get ready for doing a scene. And when I also say toughen your skin up, there's a lot of things that happen in Hollywood that she's preparing you for, and for things to happen in the future as you're progressing. And she's like, well, you're gonna get a part, and then you're gonna be studying, and you're gonna be character developing. All of a sudden, they replace you, or they don't want you there. So she's toughening that up to where you say, okay, then you go on to another opportunity instead of crying about it and whining about it. And she toughens your skin up with that. Like, she prepares you basically for anything that will happen.
Have you gone on any auditions since taking these classes where you've implemented what you've learned there?
Actually, I have. I know that I have gotten replaced on one film, and I was really upset about that. But now if that happened again, I'd totally be ready for that and then go on to the next opportunity instead of crying about it. That's the type of thing that she helps prepare you for. Of course, it's upsetting for those things to happen, but it just happens, and you have to deal with it the best way possible.
Yeah, I guess rejection's really commonplace for, I think, any actor or actress. So you're not always going to fit perfectly with what you auditioned for.
Yeah, and you get a little bit, sometimes you can get a little bit of the character breakdown, and you're not really you don't necessarily know exactly what the character has gone through, so you have to create your own backstory. That's another thing she tells us, create a backstory in imaging so that you get a little bit about the information as possible, but when you have creating the backstory, then by the time you're ready to do it, you're already inside the character. You already know what happened. You create your own backstory. It's a really cool thing that she's taught us. I love doing that.
And during an audition, have you ever run into where you gotten the character, you figured out a character one way, but it's not the way they want to see it? Do they give you that kind of feedback?
I would say so. Some people do, and some people don't. I would also say, you're not always going to get feedback. When you're on set, you need to be ready, prepared then. And they also change the scripts on you all the time. They'll say, well, you memorize this, but we're going to go a completely different direction now. We feel like, oh, this sounds better, this looks better, blah, blah, blah. That's actually happened to me a few times on set, that they change it all the time, so you have to be prepared for new memorization. And then they'll say, no, actually, let's go back to the original idea, which has happened to me a few times, too. And I'm like, okay, it was a good thing I memorized it for those good couple months.
Is it really because they have genuine changes, or are they just trying to see how well you handle the stress of encountering something new?
In my experience, it was always they were looking to see if this would fit better into the scene. So, not to see if I would handle stress, because you're supposed to already know how to handle the stress. They're not going to sit there and tell you, well, you need to do this and that. You're already supposed to know. And if something happens, don't have a diva-like moment. Just sit there and say, okay.
Have you seen any of those kind of breakdowns before?
I have a couple times. It's just stress. There's certain things I've done where people break down, and I've heard it happens a lot. So I don't think it's anything bad. I think that there's always going to be something that happens on a set or anywhere really where your mind is going to be an overload and you can't handle it. But I would say if that's going to happen, I would excuse yourself if you're able to, or just suck it up, because things are going to happen and you need to be able to deal with it.
Does word get around pretty quick when someone has one of those moments that kind of puts a bad taste in people's mouths about giving them a call back?
I would say that is definitely up to the director. I've never gossiped or anything like that because I don't look at people in a black and white way. I always feel like there's a gray aspect to where if someone's going through something, they're going through that moment at the time, and something must be happening. So I don't judge anyone for that. But for maybe, I guess, a director or whatever, if they would think they don't want them anymore, I guess so. As I've never encountered something like I've heard stories through a director once, actually, speaking of that, he said that this girl had a complete temper tantrum on set. And it's not something I saw, but it's something that he experienced himself, and she embarrassed herself so much. She deleted her Facebook, and she was never a callback for another B-horror movie. I mean, it was just a B-horror movie, but that's kind of like something she loved to do. But because she caused her own self-sabotage, the directors and other directors were talking about it, and she hasn't really done much since then.
So everyone should really treat this like a real hardcore profession. You should always be professional.
It is. It's a business. It's not show like me or show hug me. It's a business. It's a real business. And if you did that in your own real job, what would your boss think about you then? They would say, "What the hell are you doing? This is what we pay you for, and not for you to come in here and act like a 2-year-old." So
I've put things in people's files before for that at my job.
Yeah, and it's, I don't, they're thinking, people are like, oh, it's Hollywood, you do whatever you want. It's not, it's honestly not like that at all. You're supposed to be treating it like it's a business. It is your profession. You have to, it's like, okay, you work at a call center. You have to treat that professionally too. You can't yell at your customers on the phone or you'll get fired. And you're always being trained at a call center. You're constantly being trained, and that's exactly what studying is in acting classes and being on set, all that kind of stuff. You have to really treat it like it's your real career, because it is your career. It's pretty much everything. If something happens, just one little small thing, and then it could, break your career, in my opinion.
As far as B movies are concerned, what do you consider a B movie, or a B horror movie, more specifically?
I guess a lot of stuff I do, but I feel like those are more indie B horror movies. And some of the ones I've actually done were exploitation B horror movies. So those are the extreme ones. Those are the dedicated cult fans that a lot of people like, and they end up at fan conventions. And when I also think of B horror movies, I think of Rubber and Zombieverse. Zombieverse, those are B horror movies too. Things that you can find on Netflix or Fright Picks or Trauma.
Yeah.
Things like that. That's my opinion. A lot of the stuff I've done were more like exploitation B horror movies. So.
Do you see a better fan reaction out of the exploitation horror movies or the B horror?
I do. It's strange. I feel like B horror movies and exploitation horror movies are rising up as some type of big thing now. It's like a trend, like a fad. And a long time ago it wasn't. And as soon as you would say, what's a B horror movie? What's exploitation? What's all that? And you'd have to explain it. But now, as soon as you say it, people are like, oh, okay. They know exactly what you're talking about. But back a long time ago, it wasn't like that at all. It was just horror. It was just a different genre.
It's weird. It seems like Asylum and their Sharknado series was able to do what Troma tried to spend 30 years doing. Making those movies mainstream.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Oh my God. And I'm going to tell you, I love Troma too. Yeah. Father's Day. I was watching Father's Day with my two friends, Kate and Eric, who also do before I actually did movie KSAD with them recently, and we were hanging out at their house, and they had Father's Day, and we were watching it, and I could not stop laughing, and it was also really gory. It was so great. I love that. I don't understand how people can hate B horror movies. It is so awesome. Because you could do anything. You can make it comedy, you can make it gory, you can make it exploitation, you could do anything. with B horror movies now, and it's the funniest thing. You can make it the lowest budget ever, and people will still be praising the movie as the best B horror movie. It
Yeah.
is the funniest thing. It's so great.
I think there are people out there. Have you ever watched Cinema Snob on YouTube? It's kind of like that mentality actually exists, and people think that movies either have to be the pinnacle of entertainment, and there's nothing else. Everything is just garbage below that. People don't understand. Entertainment's for everyone. Everyone has different tastes. And I think B horror hits a lot of those points that we're all looking for. We're looking for cheap thrills and blood and guts and bad acting at times that make it good.
I absolutely 100% agree with you. It's kind of the same as when I was working in the music industry. It was always an elitist attitude.
Hmm.
It's either this or it's either that, and I still encounter that all the time. Diversity is great in any type of aspect, and in movies, there's always going to be diversity. And I really love the B horror stuff. So I'm not going to lie to you. I actually I enjoy doing some of the movies. It's interesting and watching them, and I'm like, wow, it's interesting what people can really come up with.
Which is your favorite one that you've done so far out of your credits?
Um, hmm. I I enjoyed KSAD a lot, but I met a lot of really awesome people who became really close best friends of mine too. And The Hospital too, probably. Those are my two favorite B horror movies that I've done. KSAD just finished, and it's going to the Florida Horror Film Festival right now. Some of the people in there have been nominated for Best Actors and Actress, so that's pretty cool. Um, that one was definitely my favorite. And Hospital 2 was neat. I filmed that, in Alabama. We're in the middle of nowhere, and I love the fact where we filmed it because we filmed it in a real haunted location that was actually on TV too, for being one of the most America's haunted places. And I'm trying to remember what the place was called. It was so long ago that I went. It was in Marion, Alabama. It's on the IMDb, I think, but there was a lot of strange things happening inside the house. One, it was in the middle of winter time. I was freezing, and the fireplace kept going out in the middle of the night. I was there for like maybe 3 or 4 days, and every night around the same hour, I would hear a scream. It sounded like a woman was dying. I know that's very strange. Some people believe in things like that, and some people don't. But until you experience it, you don't even realize what a real haunted place is. And this place was haunted. It's a real haunted, one of America's most haunted places too. And I think the background behind it, a long time ago, this lady was waiting for her husband to return from the war, and she saw this guy on a horse, and she thought it was him or that he had died. There's a flag that you wave whether the person is dead or alive. And she saw it, and she freaked out, and she would look at this window every day hoping that her husband would return. And she tripped on the stairs and bashed her head open on the railing, and you can still see the dent where she hit herself, and then she fell to her death on the carpet on the ground, and you can see like a little outline of her on there still. It never goes away. And there's people who take care of the house, and they always experience stuff too, and you can hear her in the middle of the night just screaming. And doors will open by itself, cabinets were opening by itself. There was just like little strange things, and you could hear like footsteps coming up the stairs when no one was coming up, and then the door would open by itself, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait to go home. This place freaks me out. I didn't get sleep for 4 days, and I slept on the plane. I was so exhausted. There was no heat.
How do you keep yourself from freaking out in a situation like that?
I just kind of kept my cool. It didn't really necessarily scare me, but it did freak me out a little bit. When we were doing our parts it was in the middle of the day, daytime. We didn't really do a lot in the middle of the night. We were all, waking up and going over our scenes and like going over themes. Marcus Cook was there. So yeah, one of my best friends, and he's, you know who he is.
Yep.
So he was there, and we were talking about it. It was interesting. So it was one of my favorites because we got to film it in a real haunted location, and things were actually happening there. It was spooky. And KSCD was my other favorite one. Although that one was physically exhausting, and I say that because there was a lot of, I had an actual physical fight scene with Kate. And we had to make it look real without getting hurt. And there was so much adrenaline pumping through our veins that we ended up actually hitting each other.
Oh.
And we didn't feel it until like we got home and we saw the bruises on our bodies that we actually got into a real fight during our scene. That was interesting. And my hair was being pulled. There was people jumping on me. I had to run a lot. There was a lot of things that were happening. I had to fight off people. I had to fight people. I was in a small cage for a long time. My hand was all messed up. There was a lot of things that were going on in that movie, and it was physically and mentally exhausting too, because there was a lot of things that happened in that movie to me that can trigger you really, really well if you aren't capable of keeping your cool. And thinking about it, I did have a little bit of a nervous breakdown. There's a part where I had to shoot a gun at this girl. Her name is Amanda, and she was sitting there. She was naked, and I was uncomfortable doing a scene that I already knew I had to do. And I had like no sleep. I wasn't feeling well. It was a full moon. Nobody was feeling well. Everyone was grumpy that day. And I had to do this scene, and I had to put on my best face, and I had to do this scene over and over, and I started shaking, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing this part, and she's just sitting there, and I'm like, I'm not doing this right, and I full on almost cried, and I was like, I was really embarrassed. So we took a break, and I went to the bathroom, and I just kind of sat in the bathroom, and I stared at the wall, and like 10 minutes later, and I came back out, and I did it fine. I was just very overwhelmed and uncomfortable doing a scene, but I did it. So I guess that's one example of should keep your cool, but then there is a part where there are nice directors who will be there for you when something like that happens.
Was it a culmination of things that caused that to happen, or was there a specific thing about that scene that?
It was the specific part about the scene. I feel like it's also, I wasn't feeling well, but I wasn't using that as an excuse. Mm. I feel like it was the specific scene, and the fact that I had to do the scene over and over and over and over again, and then I'm realizing, oh my god, the scene is making me extremely bent out of shape. But I did the scene pretty well, in my opinion. I had to do it over and over again, but it's the fact I don't know how to explain it unless you've seen it. There's a part where I have to do a scene, and it goes into a certain part, and I'm like, this makes me completely uncomfortable, but it's not going in the part at all to the girl. It's like the visualization and how you have to do it, and that you're not hurting her at the same time, and that you have to do it, and it has to be in a certain way that he can capture it on camera. Mm-hmm. It is ridiculous. And doing it over and over again, I was like, why is this not coming out correctly? And the part that it's just an uncomfortable thing to do to a female, so I was not having it at the time.
What would be your advice for other actors to get ready for something that they're going to be really uncomfortable for, or think they can't do?
Really look over the script, and if you're uncomfortable doing it, don't do it at all. I've learned that as my lesson. But I guess, if you've already done part of the movie, and this is kind of a tough tough one for me to answer because all I have to say is do not do it if even the slightest bit makes you uncomfortable. Because if you think reading it and rehearsing it or whatever is making you feel maybe even just a little bit squeamish, or if it's like, oh, this sounds cool, it's gonna look so cool on camera. No, when you're doing it, it's gonna be way more of a 100% bigger challenge. I don't know how to explain it, but every time I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, this is gonna look all fucked up on camera, it's gonna fuck with your mind because you're actually doing it. And don't do it if it makes you just a little bit fucked up in the head.
Yeah.
That's what to say.
I guess
getting into.
I guess that kind of also lends itself to that thing where people are trying to blame horror and video games for real life violence, but a lot of people don't understand how hard it is to do something, especially with a firearm, in real life as compared to on a screen. It's an entirely different feeling when you're aiming down the barrel of a gun, and I've shot plenty, and I know it can be pretty taxing sometimes. And so I guess people don't know that there is that big difference between a movie and real life. They are not the same at all, and no one should ever think just because you see something done in a movie that means it's going to be totally simple to just go out and do it. Especially shooting someone, shooting, stabbing, anything like that. It's not easy. It's not easy on your psyche.
I know. I know completely, and I'm like going through my mind of all like these crazy horror things that I've been a part of, and I'm like thinking, God, how did I survive mentally? It took a little time. There was a part where I actually everyone was sitting in one room and where we were filming KSAD. We were filming in a warehouse no one really knew about in St. Pete, and everyone was like watching something, and they're eating, and I'm like sitting in the back by myself, and I felt I wasn't trying to exclude myself or be a snob or anything like that. I was like sitting there mentally preparing myself for certain scenes, or that I was already like, I did this scene and I'm kind of like triggered right now. And I was just like mentally preparing myself for the next scene, or I'm like, God, I'm so fucking tired, I'm hungry, or I don't want to talk to anyone. I just kind of want to sit there and be ready for the next part. And
when you do come in contact with something that does trigger you, how long does it usually take for you to wear that feeling down?
I still think about those things. It never really goes away, especially if you've gone through traumatic moments in your life.
Yeah.
I would say be really careful about what you're signing up for. I had to learn that the hard way too. And especially if it's a non-union thing, just remember, if it's non-union, you're not going to be protected in case you get screwed over by a director or screwed over by something else. If you're signed with a union, that's good because they'll protect you and they'll always have your back, SAG. But non-union, they won't. Basically you're going through the dark, and non-union, you don't know what you're getting into. It'll sound great at first, and then you're doing it, and it's like, oh, I didn't sign up for this at all. And it's like, too bad. You're non-union. You don't have a say in anything. And except if you want to walk off, that's fine with them, and they can easily replace you. If they screwed you over, you can't complain about it except to yourself. Whereas if you were doing a union film, you could just call the union if it was, you signed a contract and something happened. You could say, oh, well, I signed this, and then this happened, and it was not supposed to happen, blah, blah, blah. Then they could be there to help you. But
would you suggest...
I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry. Would you suggest up-and-coming actors to just stay away from non-union gigs altogether?
No, I wouldn't, because I've done it, and there are some that I've done, and things were fine. I'm just always saying, be worried, be careful. And, if you don't want to do non-union, don't do it. If you only want to do specifically SAG, do it, but that's even harder because... then they have to Taft-Hartley you if you're not SAG-AFTRA, which means it's a lot of paperwork. And from what I've gathered, they don't want to have hardly a lot of people unless you're extremely unique and different. And they really, really want you. But honestly, someone else with the SAG underneath their name could just easily get the part, and they don't have to do the paperwork. Right. And it's just less stress. So, and that's the truth. It's business. So if you want the experience and you don't have the union underneath your name, and you want footage, and it's actually not that bad. There are some non-union that you can work with great footage, and they can pay you pretty well. Just, make sure you sign a contract is I would basically say. And definitely work on non-union films if you really want to, and it has like great footage, and maybe if you even know the people, and do your research.
Yeah.
Definitely do your research on who these people are. You can easily go on IMDb Pro, and most times than not, they will be there. You can Google them or you can Facebook them. If you feel worried, just ask a couple of the actresses that's worked with them before and say how are they working with, and ask them to be honest with you as possible, and see if they're good people or what they've gone through on the set type of thing. I've done that before.
IMDb Pro is definitely worth the $19 a month.
Yes, absolutely. I also have Cast Network, Backstage, Actors Access, pretty much anything that really help you. You go on there, that's casting, and you'll see something.
Do you think social media might eventually overtake those kinds of sites, or is there always going to be a need for that divide between social media and a professional?
There needs to be a line that is crossed between social media, and there absolutely 100% needs to be. Obviously people are using social media now, even on just Facebook groups where you can post your casting stuff in there. That's great, but I see my friends who are professional actors and actresses, and they're posting their auditions and things like that. That's not professional at all. Like, you can't do that. Doing that at all. That's private between you and the casting company. And if these, there's a story behind that too, where a guy got fired because everyone was posting their audition videos, and he was big in the business, and now he's not because he got sued. So, it's also, if someone is looking at your social media to see, are they the type to post their scripts? People do that. Are they the types to post their auditions? Things that are private, things you are not supposed to do, people do it, and that's why I always say there needs to be a line. And I like the fact that there's a line, because you can create a professional in business. So just be careful with social media, always.
As far as, since Florida is no longer giving tax credits to studios and Hollywood in general, do you feel that Florida is going to kind of dry up, and it's only going to be just low budget horror? And
it's always going to be low-budget horror. There's nothing going on here in Florida, and it's not going to be. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, and Florida is being destroyed. We've already lost about the only TV series that we had here. So Bloodline and Ballers. Those were the only ones that we had. And it would be great to get back a tax incentive, but the Cook brothers and all those, it's all politics and money. They're taking away, and they're planning on taking away all the tax incentives in all the 50 states. So it's,
everything's going to go to Canada.
Actually, that could be possible. They have the money, and they can take it away. And right now, we don't have incentives in Florida. We don't have anything, and it's sad. And we could have the jobs here and the crew. Everyone is just left, and it's kind of not fair. But it's politics, it's business, and nothing's gonna happen here. If anyone is coming near here to do B horror, okay, cool, but you're not gonna make a living off of it. If you actually want to make a real profession in this business, and there's nothing wrong with doing horror movies, but just make sure you have the right agent and you're trained professionally. But do not stay in Florida. It's cool to commute and go to Georgia, Louisiana, wherever. But Florida, nothing happening, and it's not going to happen for a long time.
What other genres are you interested in besides horror?
I love a lot of sci-fi, like thriller and psychological stuff. I really like anything that makes me think, even if it's a part of a horror thing, but if it's like a psychological, like, for example, um, Lords of Salem,
Hmm.
is considered horror, but to me, it reminded me so much of watching Rosemary's Baby.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, there's so much more going on here. Was she still into her drugs, or was this really happening as for Rosemary's Baby or Seven? All these things, it all mind fucks types of stuff. It's kind of like what I'm into. Anything that makes you think too. I like crime dramas. I know that's kind of like weird. But my main thing is definitely horror. I'm a horror and gore person. Every day on my Facebook, I'm always going to be posting some type of disgusting horror and gore type little GIF or movie thing. And I'm like, oh, I love this stuff. It's my favorite. And that is ultimately what I hope to do in the future. Do more real horror, gore stuff. I'd love to do something with Eli Roth or a Rob Zombie type thing. Those are the types that's in TV shows. TV shows. Those are where it's at. TV series. Like, they have Evil Dead, and they have like all these different things on Sci-Fi now and A&E. They got The Return and Bates Motel, and then you've got Channel Zero and all these Z Nation, all these weird horror stuff that's going on right now, and it's so huge. It's so cool, and those are the types of things I'd love to be a part of in the future.
You might actually, I mean, if you moved up to Georgia, you'd probably have a better chance of getting on a Netflix series, since that's where they shot Stranger Things.
Yeah, I'd like to say that, but actually, I think I'm just going to stay in Florida. Everyone who moved to Georgia to get they were booking, but not a lot.
Hmm.
And they actually made more money when they lived in Florida, because that way they could, they had the hotel expenses, the travel expenses, all that was paid for. But if you live in Georgia, they're going to say, oh, you live here? Well, we don't need to pay for anything except for you per day, whatever. So there's a lot of people who also hate Georgia, which is me. I hate Georgia. So I would never move there. If I had to commute, that would be fine, but I would never, ever move there. I hate the driving. I hate downtown. I hate everything about it. So,
How did you get interested in the horror genre?
um, I've always been into it. I've been watching those things as a kid. Stephen King, I really liked when I was a kid. I know I was not supposed to be watching that stuff when I was younger, and but I did anyways. I remember watching Child's Play 1 and 2 growing up. Two really great movies.
Hmm.
And I know I wasn't supposed to be watching that, but all I could think of, this movie is a comedy. Like, it was a comedy to me. I think it is so funny. I'm like, so these people are dying from a little doll, and all you need to do is pick him up and throw him off.
You just gotta throw them in a fire and it's all over.
Yeah, no, and I tell that to people, and people who aren't as into horror, I see horror in a different way. Like when there's someone's eye being gouged out or someone being eaten with their zombie, I laugh at those things. That's nothing for me to watch. There's some really fucked up ones, what was it, a Serbian film? Some really crazy ones out there, and I'm like, oh. I just watched one that I think is a masterpiece. It's kind of low budget, but not completely low budget. It was actually beautiful cinematography. I believe it won awards. It's a Turkish horror film, and you can find it on Netflix, called Baskin.
Okay.
It's a masterpiece, and I've been watching that a lot more and more and more lately. And it is so cool. These cops find their way to hell in a house. And there's this kid in it that's really young cop, but there's all these weird things happening in his head, and you don't know what's going on or what is really going on, and it's another country. Anything foreign is gonna be amazing. That's all I have to say. foreign, Japanese, anything that's horror, as long as it's not American, it's gonna be the best movie you'll ever watch, and it doesn't matter how low budget or how different it is. It's gonna be amazing because it's all unique, it's different, and they're not tainted by America. So
Would you then say that like Italian zombie movies are better than American horror movies?
I would say so. I think just like the American mentality of horror, it's always the same, like from remakes, everything needs to be CGI or everything needs to be this and that. Everything is always has to be zombies. Everything has to be something. But then when I watch something foreign and I'm like, it's completely different. I love it. It's always a different plot. It's always different gore. It's not a lot of CGI. They're using special effects that more people should be doing because screw CGI. Like, that's how I feel. Like, foreign horror movies are always my favorite. So,
What creatures would you like to see take the mainstream away from the zombie genre?
what creatures?
Yeah, or what subset of the horror genre?
Um, Zombies. I'm tired of them. Been done with them. It's been over. It's been done with. It's done. Bye. That I would so love, unless it's a George A. Romero. But yeah. Oh, there's Walking Dead, but I think that series is it's kind of boring right now. The past couple seasons has picked up really well, and I'm totally Team Negan because I've been kind of I've been watching that for a long time, and I hated it for like 4 or 5 seasons. I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why? There's nothing going on. And I was like, why does anyone like this show again? It is so boring. Nothing's going anywhere, and people die. How can they make a storyline? It is the same thing every season, but the past couple seasons I picked up on it is because they put new themes into it. But I'm definitely done with zombies. I think there should be new creatures. I know that they're making a different Jeepers Creepers, which has been kind of controversial, but I always liked the first movie.
Well, that's more the director that kind of makes that controversial.
He did,
Yeah,
and he
rightfully so, but
rightfully so. Yes, the only thing I liked Powder. So that was a different type of creature, and that wasn't really horror. But when we're talking about creatures, I'm thinking of like real creatures. But like, I'm definitely done with zombies. I wish that there could be something different and unique that would pop up.
mm-hmm.
I kind of was digging Channel Zero Sci-Fi because I thought that was a different experience to watch. And they made Z Nation, and zombies are always going to be popular because who doesn't love people getting eaten alive and then turning into zombies? And then they made a comedy horror TV show out of it. It's genius.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like the comic relief of The Walking Dead. So it's not that bad. But I definitely wish that zombies could kind of like stay out of the limelight and put something new into it.
Should we?
Opinion.
Since True Blood's been off the air, I mean, there's no vampires anymore. There's
vampires. Yeah, the vampires were going out for a while, but they're what is this? The end of the Vampire Diaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't watch that. I did watch True Blood. I love True Blood. I never get old of vampires, but there's not a lot. I mean, I guess there's a lot more that you can do with vampires, but not too much. As for zombies, it's always the same thing. The end of the world, the apocalypse. You don't want to get eaten. If you get eaten, you're going to turn into a zombie.
Mm-hmm.
So vampires, there's always something else that you can make within a subplot of a subplot.
Well, like a very different vampire movie would be like 30 Days of Night. That's something
Yes!
I usually don't see, but no one thinks of. That there was a part of
great.
the world that's dark for 30 days. And
Let's just be honest. Fuck Twilight.
I think that's a universal consensus with anyone over the age of 14.
Yes, let's just be honest. Fuck Twilight. Like, oh my god. And the Lost Boys, so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these were real vampires. They were 30 Days a Night that comes along, and it was scary. It was scary, and it was gross, and they had a different vampire like language to them, and it was, and everyone was trapped in Alaska for their 30 days a night, and you couldn't do anything. That's terrifying to me. What if that happened if I lived in a small town and there were these creatures and you didn't know what they were, and they're just coming into your home and yeah, like, that's terrifying. Or they can pull you underneath the car and just eat you alive. This wasn't like sucking your blood. They were literally ripping the throats right out of you.
Yep.
And I was like, that is a vampire movie.
I think there needs to be more, like, stranded, not stranded on, like, you know, a town, but maybe, like, on a ghost ship. Something like that. Something that we don't see that much anymore. We don't see those kind of location films.
Why don't you write a script about that?
I'm not a script writer. I'm just a guy that can write short stories and stick them on a website and be done with it. That's where my writing talent ends.
You can make like little things like that and do a new media project and then submit it to Crypt TV.
I could. Well, I don't think I could send it to Crypt TV since I work for Dread Central, so it would have to be them. But
is that a conflict of interest?
That is kind of a, well, I mean, not really, because, you know, I can do what I want, but it's also balancing that thing. Unfortunately, I'm in one of those positions where I can't really be a filmmaker just because I have so many other responsibilities that I can't get away from. Nor would I want to. I wouldn't, you know, my wife and my daughter and my job, I just can't get away from them. But there's a lot of other people that have that opportunity that I think should go for it. They shouldn't get discouraged. They should take that chance. Even if they think they're going to fail at it, it's better to fail and learn something than to never do it at all when you're in your, like, mid-40s and you're like, well, shit, I wanted to make that movie, but fuck, now I got 5 kids. I can't do it.
I think you have a really great mentality, though, even though you still love you're doing what you're doing. And even if you can't get to everything what you want to do, you're still telling, you know, everyone, still do what you love and pursue it. That's why I always tell people. And if you never know until you try. So that's why, you know, you're never going to know until you do it. So I'm always telling people, so go do it. Don't put it off.
I think I find happier people on film sets than I do in the corporate world. Even, I think it was a movie called Brainjack that Marcus was doing effects on. We were at Fort DeSoto at like 2 a.m. in the middle of August, sweating just gallons of sweat, and everyone was just loving doing what they were doing.
That's beautiful.
He's putting on this great makeup, everyone's shooting, we're making a good movie. It's hot, but who cares? Because we're doing what we want to do without someone, you know, putting their boot on our throat.
On this, speaking of that, with Marcus, actually, hospital too, I remember, like, okay, so there was a scene where I'm getting tortured, and it's freezing in Alabama, because we're filming in the wintertime. It was like 11 degrees, and we were in the attic, and everything was set up there, and I'm like this, and I'm freezing, and I have, like, no clothes, and Marcus is there, and I'm thinking how fucking cold I was. I couldn't stop shaking, and my lips were turning different colors. So every time that we weren't doing the scene, they had to cover me up, make sure I was warm. But unfortunately, I was freezing, and Marcus, I remember Marcus was there, and he had to do this really uncomfortable scene, and where he has to spray blood, where it's a rather gross, traumatizing movie, and I get killed in a very specific way, and I hated it. I was kind of embarrassed a little bit, but I was loving what I was doing, even though I was freezing and I was uncomfortable and feeling a little awkward. And Marcus was there, and he had to spray blood coming from below of me, and I'm like screaming, and everyone's getting messed up, and I'm like, please don't look at me. But at the same time, I was also kind of having a great time too, because I loved doing what I was doing. It was fun, and I got to meet a bunch of cool people, and I love working with Marcus. He's
Speaking of Marcus, I kind of do want to do a plug for 200 Tears because I loved
do
100
it.
Tears.
Gordy is back.
I think it's Kickstarter.com, 200 Tears. I haven't checked it in the past week, so I don't know what they're up to. But yeah, please go on there, donate money, go watch 100 Tears. It is amazing.
Nice, nice.
um, Trying to think what other questions I have. On 88.5, tell me something about your show that you do on. For those that don't know that aren't in Florida.
Sure.
88.5 is a local radio station for
Mhm.
the Tampa Bay to Orlando. Is that the broadcast range?
Tampa Bay, St. Pete, Orlando, and other surrounding areas. I can't remember all the areas, but I know that you can actually tune in and other places too. They're a little bit fuzzier, but you can still like tune in, so that's good. I actually am a programmer for Psycho Realms, and it's the only real metal radio station around. Well, we're not radio station, but the segment, sorry, at the radio station, and we're actually an award-winning one too. A lot of people don't know that. We've won little trophies and stuff. We're award-winning. We've been around for a very long time, like 9 or so years now. It's hard sometimes because we're on the radio from like 1 to 4 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been doing it for a long time, and we don't just play we don't play like stuff from hard rock. We play real metal.
Mm-hmm.
Like we'll go from black metal to heavy metal to classic to deathcore. We death metal, like industrial. And there are some punk influences, so sometimes you will hear some punk music on there, like Misfits, the Ramones, different, or like real crust punk type stuff. Like the other night, I was just watching Coke Bust at the Brass Mug. Yeah, that's what I do. I host a metal radio show, and with a couple of other people. There's some people that's been in and out, but I've been doing it for a pretty long time, and right now it's just me and E-Rock and Elder Sign. We are the only two, and I'm the only female on there.
I don't think there has been real heavy metal on Tampa Bay radio since I think my early teens, when like late night on 98 Rock would play it for a couple hours, and that was it.
Yeah, the pit is still around on 8 Rock, but I'm not going to pitch them, which I just did. Oops. Before Psycho Realms, there was Dark Horizons, and a lot of people remember Dark Horizons. That was pretty much what it was too. They played the darker side of it, and it was Dark Horizons, and now it's there's Psycho Realms. So when people hear the metal part, they actually start talking about Dark Horizons, and that's pretty cool that people still remember that. So we've been around for a pretty long time, and we also play locals and national. We do a lot of interviews. We've gotten big bands to come in, and local bands. We will always welcome anyone that wants to promote. And we don't just do bands. We've actually had filmmakers that come in that want to promote something, horror, or local photographers that want to come in, things like that, things that they think will help promote them, and we're fine with having guests come in all the time. So we try to help people out as much as possible to get them on the airways, because we do have listeners.
What's the contact information for people that be interested in getting on 88.5?
You can contact me, E-Rock, or Elder. There's we have a Facebook page. It's called Psycho Realms. You can my name on Facebook is Lisa Marie Kart, so you can find us, and it's pretty simple. And on the Facebook, you can message us on the business one, and we do return people's messages on there. Everyone is an admin, so everyone looks at them, and we communicate. And there's also DJ at WMNF.org. Make sure it's labeled for Psycho Realms, and if you want to send in your MP3 and links and different stuff, or say, hey, would it be okay for us to come in, that's fine too. That's a more professional way as well. I was just letting just messaging us, it's fine as well.
Is there a way for people outside the state to listen into the radio station through the website or anything?
Yeah, there's WMNF.org. You can just click on there and listen live, but there's also, you can find us on the thing where it says Psycho Realms. So we have, everything's organized on the website to where you can find what you want to listen to. So.
That's awesome. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up everything I have. I do have a couple of questions for you off the record when we're done recording this. So,
Sure.
Is there anything else you'd like to add, Miss Lisa?
No, just always pursue your dreams. You never know what you're going to do or what's going to happen until you actually do it. Don't procrastinate. Just do it. Don't complain. Just do it.
All right. Thank you very much.